Welcome to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast, the place where ideas, principles, and personalities come together to give you a ministry advantage that empowers the church and home.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marianne Howard, Ron Hunter, and Josh Wooten.
Well, today our guest is none other than Mr. J.J. Jones, and he is gifted in many areas, but you will learn in this interview, he talks about renovating a log cabin for ministry. And we were talking off air about Ron's love for woodworking and tools and home renovations and things like that. Maybe not his love for that, but home renovations in general. But with that being said, if you could renovate one area or one aspect of your home, what would it be? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, I'll jump quick. That's what we were talking about. My wife and I just moved, and I gave up a 1,500 square foot shop that mostly was woodworking into a 2-car garage that we still want to get our 2 cars into. And so that you can imagine how much I gave up moving here. But I do have a plan to keep all my hand tools and one really nice table saw that I'll use as a workbench and table saw. And I really want to get my garage in order, but it's going to be evenings and weekends over the next 2 or 3 months. So that's going to be my renovation project. I'll keep my all of you guys apprised as to how that's going.
Yes.
How about you, Marianne?
I would want to renovate our upstairs. There's just some things, like we ended up buying a house. We saw lots of different houses and we bought a house without a media room. And I know that seems like no big deal, but it kind of is, just with the layout of our house. We've got 2 great rooms upstairs, but it's open. I have a super open concept. So those great rooms spill on over into our living room. The sound spills
downstairs.
over.
Yeah.
And I've got teenagers and they're loud and it's their space, but it's just the flow up there is just kind of funky. And I would want to add a media room and just kind of change things up just a little bit up there, just to be a little bit more functional. I mean, we're not going to ever do that, but I mean, that's the one change I would want to make. What about you, Josh?
Oh, we're in the progress of selling our house right now, and we did a lot of renovations, new flooring, new paint, fixtures, light fixtures, hinges, doorknobs, all the stuff, and paint. But the one thing we ran out of money before we got to was our kitchen, because we had to get a new garage door. And it would definitely be the kitchen, because we've had several showings, and that seems to be the one area. And the kitchen's a little dated. I'm like, I know this. That's why the price is where it's at. But so if I could, if I could renovate my kitchen right now, I totally would.
That would be it. Let me segue into our interview with what Josh just said, because Pam and I just went through what Josh and Lena were describing. And, you know, when you get ready to sell your house, you start doing things to it. And some of those are things you always wanted to do, but you didn't do while you were living there. I actually paused and had to have a very heart-to-heart talk with my wife, because I felt so guilty that I was doing some things for the new people who were buying it that she had wanted for a couple of years. And God got a hold of me. And I'm like, babe, when we get to the new house, now you know what I call my wife. I said, babe, when we get to the new house, I do not want to delay. I want to hear what you want, and I want us to enjoy it the whole time we're there. I don't want to do it for the next person who's going to occupy it. So with that in mind, JJ is going to talk about some renovations And I don't want you to listen like I often do, going, hey, that's a great idea. I'd love to get to that one day. And we never do. I want you to go, you know what? We need this. We need to experience this. The people around us need to enjoy this new approach. And JJ is just, from professor, youth pastor, family minister, is going to just overflow into our minds and our hearts some incredible insights. Let's listen to JJ Jones.
Give your children and grandchildren a way to treasure your handwritten words with our new Generational Legacy Journal. About You, About Me, Generational Legacy Journal will guide you in telling your story while describing your kids or grandkids in ways that capture their hearts and leave an inspiring legacy. The left side pages tell your story, while the right side tells theirs, from the trivial to the powerful. Your child or grandchild will know each insight came from your experiences and observations about their life, their curiosities, their big milestones, and more, drawing them in to learn from your memories, insights, and encouragement. All the while, they will intentionally bump into scripture and your faith values. Visit d6family.com to order your copy of this Generational Legacy Journal today.
Today, I'm joined by JJ Jones. JJ was in youth and family ministry for over 30 years and now leads a large multi-campus group ministry for Fellowship Bible Church in the Nashville area. He is also an adjunct professor at Toccoa Falls College. He and Anna have been married for 33 years and have 2 grown children and a new granddaughter. They still actively shepherd parents and families. JJ, thanks for coming back.
Hey, it's so good to be back. It's been a lot of fun this week.
Well, it's really, really good to have you here, and we are talking about church as a family today and looking at it as a new paradigm and how we get there.
Right.
Now, family ministry is still a relatively new concept for many people. We hear about it, but we're so acquainted with youth ministry, children's ministry.
Yeah.
We hear family ministry and we say, that sounds good, but what exactly does that look like?
Yeah.
How would you describe where family ministry was 20 years ago compared to today?
Yeah, that's a really good place to start, because I was in youth ministry 20 years ago, actually over 30 years ago as well. So when you think about kids ministry, you think about youth ministry, and you think about the past few years. 20 years ago, we were really just coming into our own. We were kind of growing. I had seen kind of the maturation of youth ministry, and in my view. Family ministry was kind of birthed out of a need in youth ministry that we saw, saying, okay, we're missing something. Where do we go next? What needs to happen? And we're like, we really need to minister to parents. What does that look like, and how do we do that? So we started seeing these movements that move towards that. And, I see family ministry as well as youth ministry and kids ministry, kind of going in eras. So that era is what I like to call church and family. We started kind of saying we need to do something with the family. Think back to Mark DeVries and family-based ministry. Yeah. Think about the early '90s, the late '90s, early 2000s, and really trying to begin to. We're going to have some things for parents. We're going to equip parents. We're going to see what that begins to look like. And we were doing well at that, and over the years, different models began to develop. We began to take it a little bit deeper, and we said, we really need to equip parents. Discipleship really needs to happen in the home, and probably about 15 years or so ago, we really began to see this model of equipping the home. D6 was beginning to grow, and they come on the scene. Guys like Timothy Paul Jones was around. Southern Seminary was doing some great work with that, and this era is what I like to call the family equipping area. The church with family. Like, hey, families, we want to equip you to do this in the home. That's where it needs to happen. You can do this. We can help. So how do we build that? What do we do? We just felt we needed to reconsider how we poured into parents. And so we began to develop these programs. We begin to develop these resources. D6 has been a huge part of that. And we begin to make that available to parents. So currently we've seen that this model of family equipping ministry has really been good. It's really worked well, right? The church and the home partnering together to disciple the next generation. For me, I think it's time to consider what's next. Where do we go from here? Because what we're doing right now is good. It is a great foundation, but I think we need to really think what's next. I think it feels incomplete to me. I think there's more. So that's the question I'm asking. What's next? Where do we need to go from here? What's the next iteration? What's the next era of family ministry? Now that it's kind of grown and matured a little bit and coming into its own, what does that look like? And I'm hearing that from practitioners now. I'm hearing that from conference attendees. What is next? Where do we go? A lot of questions like that in my breakout yesterday. So I'm like where we are is good, but it feels incomplete to me. I think we're ready to move on to that next thing.
You mentioned Mark DeVries' family-based ministry. I remember reading that. I think 2006 is when I read it, and it was. What I was reading was a relatively new concept for me.
Game changing.
And it put me on the path where I am now, being here at D6. But thinking about that, family ministry is not a new concept. It's a biblical concept, so it's not new. But the current emphasis seems to be relatively new. Do you feel like we're kind of still in the infancy with the emphasis we're putting on it?
That's a great question. I think we're probably more in the mid-adolescence of it. I think we're still growing. I think there's a lot to learn. I think we're just really scraping the surface of what family ministry could look like, because I really think it begins to involve the whole church, not just our families. We're finding more and more material out there, more and more authors writing about, more research on. And Ron addressed this, with this week here at D6. How do we really define family? It's not the traditional Western nuclear family that we think of, even though we know that's ideal. We know that facilitates health and growth in our families and in society. But that's just not where we are. Our world is broken. We're broken, and we have families that are broken. We have systems that are broken, and how do we really live into being the family of God together? And really move into what I think is the next place we need to move to, the next era we need to move to. I think we have a lot of work to do in that. We're beginning to have those conversations. I've heard them a lot at D6. Last year, it was only a few of us that were kind of, floating that out there. But so I think we're kind of like a teenager that's having growing pains. It's time to get some new shoes. The shoes, we can't fit them anymore. Our feet are hurting, and we've got to have some room to grow and to really be able to function well.
And I like how you've put it, and I think it takes a little pressure off some of our parents and church leaders who, if they're, it's tempting to say, I have no idea about family ministry. This is a new concept to me. You don't need to feel like you're left behind.
Yeah.
You can jump in. It's not like this has been, just everybody in the world's been doing this. A lot of churches are still now just discovering it, now coming on and implementing it. But as they implement it, change is going to happen, but change is difficult. And it doesn't matter if you are a Fortune 500 business. It doesn't matter if you're a church. It doesn't matter if you're just implementing it in the home. Change is always going to be difficult. Yeah. Are you seeing that churches and church members are becoming more receptive to this idea of family ministry?
I believe so. I'm encouraged more than ever. I think we've come a long way in the church. And I believe that senior pastors now more than ever are even open to it. That used to be the kind of where the wall hit. We kind of got it down here in middle management, but they were so stretched and stressed that it just wasn't on their radar. I had 4 senior pastors in my breakout yesterday, which was awesome. I love that. So we're starting to see that it's not just the family ministry team, the kids ministry team, the youth ministry team that's beginning to think about this and own family ministry. I think there's a desire for a more holistic ownership of it within church staffs, but they just don't know how to get there. And one of the biggest challenges that we're going to face for those of us on church staff, because I'm on a church staff. I lead in a different capacity than I did years ago. I had over 30 years in youth ministry, but now I'm a groups pastor. But I want to make sure that I'm intentionally communicating with our family ministry team of how we partner together. And you don't see that a lot. There's still a lot of silos, right? So one of the biggest challenges we're going to have is really to reframe how we move the church's role from programs more to partnerships within the church ministries themselves, and how they can do that, as well as in intergenerational relationships and how we foster that in our churches. Full honesty, most of us are not senior pastors. Right. We're leading from the middle. So what I always encourage family ministry teams, youth pastors, kids pastors to do is find what I call that person of peace. When Jesus sent the 12 out, one of their first missions, he said, when you go to a home, let peace be on that home. If they accept it, then let the peace stay with that. If not, if they reject you, then take the peace and go to the next one. Shake the dust off your feet. Who's that person of peace, that ministry of peace within your own church staff that you can sit across the table with? I call this leading across the table. Who can you lead across the table? That one step, that one person, that one ministry that gets that you can take that next step of bringing the generations together and taking that next step to where we need to go in family ministry. Much less having it as, before the whole congregation and before the whole ministry staff as well. But that's the biggest challenge, is that we're still siloed. We still have all these things that we hold dear and we protect and we don't want to let go of within our own ministries. And it hurts the body. It hurts the family of God. And we need to have a kind of a rethinking and reframing of things as we do that. That's going to be the biggest challenge. I'm encouraged with where we're going. I think we want to get there. I don't know if we really realize the sacrifice it may take to get there for some of us, even for those of us in family ministry.
Mm-hmm. Those are some great thoughts. I want to continue talking about this. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with J.J. Jones.
Parents, grandparents, volunteers, and church leaders. Are you ready to take your family discipleship to the next level? Join us for the 2025 D6 Conference, where faith and family come together. At the D6 Conference, you'll connect with like-minded individuals, learn from top family ministry experts, and explore innovative ways to disciple the next generation. Join us in Seattle, Washington, March 21st and 22nd, or in Orlando, Florida in April from the 22nd to the 24th, featuring dynamic speakers, engaging workshops, and practical resources that you can take back to your church and home. Don't miss out on this life-changing event. Visit d6conference.com to register now and be part of a movement that's shaping the future of faith and family discipleship. D6 Conference 2025, where true family ministry training happens. March 21st and 22nd in Seattle, Washington, and April 22nd to 24th in Orlando, Florida. Register today at d6conference.com.
We're back with J.J. Jones, and we're talking about church as a family. Now, in your breakout at the D6 Conference, you discussed some new insights concerning family ministry. Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah, we'd love to do that. I want to open this part up with just an illustration, a picture, and I used it in our breakout. My wife and I just bought a log cabin outside of Franklin, Tennessee, in the hills. Been a dream of ours for over 20 years, and it's going to be future ministry. I'm probably retiring in about 10 years or so. I'm kind of getting close to that age and thinking about that, but it's going to be a future place where we host people in ministry and their spouses and just pour into them over a week, retreat, rest, Sabbath, spiritual formation. We benefited from that over probably 30 years ago, and it saved me from burning out in ministry as a young pastor. So God has provided that. So we've gone in and we're We're gutting the whole thing. The main floor is going to be ours. We're going to refinish the basement to do this ministry area, but it's a total redo. And what's great about it is the cabin it's a true truss cabin, a chink log cabin. It's got a great structure. There's no load-bearing wall, so we could go in and we could tear everything down. And what we've done is we've taken the structure and we've reframed it to fit the purpose and the plan that we have for it, that God's given us for that. I think that's where we need to go with family ministry. The cabin has good bones, and what we've built so far with church and family, church with family, it's got good bones. We just need to reframe some things to move the direction and serve the purpose of where God wants us to go next. And I believe it's that intergenerational influence. So I think, I think where we're at is really good. I think it's incomplete. I think there's some reframing to take place, and this is that era that I call church as family, which is the title of the breakout, kind of where we're going with things. And in the breakout, I kind of built 3 pictures of how we kind of can think of this. One is a theological picture, and I use the illustration of the cabin, right? We have the good bones. We have the theology of who we are as adopted brothers and sisters in God, the family of the church, right? Church as family. And so I use that. That's a theological picture. I use a relational picture, and I talked about in the Eastern world, and especially in a lot of rural communities and a lot of unindustrialized communities, there's this communal aspect of raising the young. It's called alloparenting. And what it means is that it's not just mom and dad raising the young. It's not just extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles. It's a whole community. Really, it's the old adage, it takes a village, the old African proverb, right? It's the whole village raising the kids, surrogate aunties and uncles and, people that are speaking into them. So that's a relational picture. And then I kind of wrapped up with a practical picture of where I think we need to go as in church as family. And it's actually a new model that I'm kind of trying to introduce and talk about. It's called interdependent family ministry. And interdependent family ministry actually asks the question, what if fostering a sense of community where the church functions as a cohesive family wasn't just a responsibility of the family ministry department? I got a lot of amens with that. What if it was a responsibility of all the church, ministries owning this and owning the discipleship and the nurturing of the young and the family of faith? What if family discipleship belonged to every ministry in the church? That's what I mean by interdependent family ministry. It's not just an interdependence among the generations in the church. It's not just intergenerationality, it's an interdependence among the ministries. It's not going to happen in the body if we're not leading it within our ministries in the church and we're not on the same page. I think that's where we really need to go. I'm not advocating doing away with children's ministry programs, our youth ministry programs, our adult programs. I live in the adult world now, so, But what I am saying is that there's going to be some ways that we're going to have to rethink and reframe how we do ministry, especially programmatically, so that, think of a Venn diagram, where our family ministries, where our adult ministries, where our worship ministries, the Sunday and Wednesday ministries meet in the middle, that sweet spot. That's where interdependent family ministry happens. And it takes us all reaching across the table and planning that together, and being willing to let go of some sacred cows that need to be barbecued, some pumpkin jars that need to be smashed, and think about what's good for the body and the family of God.
That's really good. Also, just want to put it out there that I'm about 20 minutes from Franklin, so if we need to add some pictures to the show notes or anything,
just
let me know.
I got a picture I showed. It was a cabin when we had the snow. It was a cabin in the snow, and I took a picture of it. I mean, dude, Hallmark. Come on,
Oh, I won't let my wife know that. Well, we've seen family ministry evolve through the years. Where do you think it's headed now?
Yeah. I think I know where it needs to head, what we just talked about, because the way that doing church as family, it accomplishes several things. First, it models the way that Jesus thought about the church, right? Mark 3, John 19, and Mark 3, when he said, "Who's my brothers, my sisters? These here that do the will of God. These are my brothers, my mother, my brothers, my sisters. John 19, and I hadn't seen this until recently, but when he looked at John on the cross, and he looked at Mary, he said, woman, behold, this is your son. Son, this is your mom. And really, he was kind of shifting that care. Usually the oldest son, or the next oldest son would take care of a widowed mom. We don't even know that Jesus' siblings were there at the cross, but he was changing this paradigm from a family being just blood to more of a family of faith. So I've come to the conviction that effective family ministry has got to include not just the family, but the local holistic body of Christ as well, the family of God. I believe that it requires every ministry to be a part of family ministry. I believe that it involves the youngest to the oldest, right? It's not just the young learning from the older, wiser population, or them just adopting them. It's really a mutual learning, right? Yeah. That's that intergenerational piece. That's not multi-gen. You can be multi-gen and not be intergenerational. Most churches are multi-generational, but so I believe to get to where we want to go. And where we need to go, I think there's 3 shifts that must happen in our thinking. The first shift is this. The first shift is moving from thinking a more maternal and paternal mindset to an eternal mindset, right? As we think about family ministry, it's not just about the home. Right there, we have great tools. We've built that. We got the good bones for that. All right, we need to reframe some things, and we need to be thinking eternal relationships, brothers and sisters in Christ, from the youngest to the oldest. The second shift I think we need to see happen in our thinking is from partnership to relationship. It's not just partnering with the home. Right, it's the whole church partnering together. It's I love what we're doing with. I love milestone strategies and how that partners with the home. I wrote a milestone strategy. I'm a big proponent of them, but it's more than just on a Sunday morning and recognition and giving tools to parents and say, hey, here, go do this at home, have fun, right? Do this. We'll be here on Sundays and Wednesdays for you. What if our small groups were strategically moving through family faith formation together in their age groups, in their intergenerational groups, and life stage affinity groups as well? What if we were bringing the generations together to learn from one another? And because I guarantee you, the way that seniors and struggles they had when they were younger trying to follow Christ are very similar. The culture is different, circumstances are different, but they're very similar, and they're dealing with the same things. So it's that partnership. Moving from a partnership, hey, we're partnering church with home, to no, we're church and we're a family. We're working church as a family. It's changing it to that verb. I love where Ron went the other night with the talk when he said he landed on we need to kind of reframe family as a verb, right? And I've been saying that for a while, and church leaders are just looking at me. What do you? I'm like, we need to family one another in the church. They're like, what? That sounds weird. What do you mean? I'm like, we need to operate as a family. Yeah. I'm not the first one to say this. A guy named Dennis Guernsey was saying it over 50 years ago, way ahead of his time. So it's moving from we need to see ourselves not just partners with a home, but we're all in relationship together, and we need to draw everyone into that. And then I think we need to move the third shift in our thinking from generational discipleship to intergenerational discipleship. All these things, thinking about mom and dad, partnering with the home, generational discipleship, that we need those. We're doing those well, but what's next? Yeah. We need to move to that intergenerational discipleship piece. As a church, family is not something we are, it's something we do. It's that verb. We're called to family one another. It's not just passing the faith down from mom and dad to kids, but it's the whole family of God investing in those kids and passing the faith down. It's us learning from those kids as they're growing. Why did Jesus get so indignant when the disciples were pushing kids away? And he said, no, let the little children come. Most of us, when we trusted Christ, we had to trust with a childlike faith, because to the rest of the world, it just doesn't make sense. But to a child, it does. I remember when my kids were small, and I could tell them the moon was blue, and they believed me. Dad, okay, cool. Let's go watch Adventures in Odyssey or whatever. But I think those shifts have to happen, and it's not just doing this together as a church in partnership, but it's doing it in concert together. So, but to do that, we've got to be able to reach across the table interdependently as church ministries and move to this idea of interdependent family ministry. And we've got to really have this shift in our thinking of what it means to incorporate family ministry and to thrive in family ministry in our local churches. And I think we have to have those three shifts.
Well, I appreciate you sharing this with us today. That the phrase it kind of keeps stinging in my mind right now is where you said that just because we're multi-generational doesn't mean we're intergenerational. And I think that is a challenge and a conviction, and such a great thing for us to think about as we go forward with doing family ministry. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your longevity in ministry, because that is uncommon for people to spend 30 years doing youth ministry, family ministry. Yeah. Just such an incredible thing, and I know lives are changed because of it. So thank you for what you've done in ministry, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's always a lot of fun to be with you guys.
Well, fellas, this guy gives us a beautiful blueprint for what he calls holistic ownership for family ministry. And I don't even think he realized what he did, but I actually wrote kind of the domino of where he's encouraging us to move in our thinking when we're thinking strategically about, church as a family. He said, and I want us to really talk about this. We've got to reframe and rethink and move from programs to partnerships to purposeful relationships. He kind of moves that. Now, he doesn't say it but as I'm listening through the entire interview, he gave us a blueprint, and he says, we've got to move from programs to partnerships and from partnerships to purposeful relationships. That's really, and it's this holistic ownership of family ministry where it's a whole church intergenerational, and how we link and do that. And I'm going to tell you, this was exciting for me to hear this. What do you guys think about this?
Not only intergenerational, but interdependent. Like they need each other. I love the whole renovation mindset. It's like with the cat, you take away the stuff, but you leave the good bones. And I think there's some things within our programs and our philosophies, maybe even the way we do things, we need to strip away the stuff. Don't take away the core of what's standing us up and propping us up and providing the shelter. But there are some things that we can do to make things new and exciting and more functional to how we need to be doing ministry and growing smaller. Connecting those dots, becoming disciples who make disciples.
I love how he challenged us, Josh, along that same thought to lead across the table rather than coming there arguing for our perspective. You look at your colleagues across the table in another ministry and go, how can we do this together? And I'm going to steal this from you, JJ. If you're listening after the fact, you will not own this, but the church does not need multi-generational discipleship. It needs intergenerational discipleship.
Yeah.
I think that helps people stop and go, we're multi-generational. Yeah, you are. But are you intergenerational? Wow.
Right.
Yeah. It's so often, it's one of those things that I've pushed for and for many years to realize, you talk about silos. Everybody's talked about the siloed approach, but, I think the older generation, us more seasoned people, we have things an experience to give back to that next generation. And there is no retirement in the Bible. I think that we need to be purposeful about connecting those generations and having them serve one another in different ways.
I saw this kind of played out. We're in this season of when this interview aired, it's summer. And so we're finishing VBS week. And you guys watching our entire youth ministry held a role in our VBS programming. held different roles. My 13-year-old son, who's only taken care of our golden doodle, taking him for walks and fed him, is in a 3-year-old classroom this week, you guys, and he's in shock. He is in shock. He has learned. He came home with his bottom lip quivering because he realized for the first time that VBS isn't for him. He's aged out, and now he's serving 3-year-olds, and that is beautiful. And then he connected with this little 3-year-old, and he knows his dad. And so he's able to tell his dad, do you see the interlinking there? That's what he's talking about here, is that it's an interlinking, and there's relationships being built, and there's opportunities that we're rethinking how we're structuring intergenerational discipleship.
And now that 3-year-old is growing up going, I want to be like Xander, or whoever it was in that classroom. You know what I mean? I can't wait till I'm old enough that when I get out of VBS, I get to serve in VBS. And it's that discipleship just factory that's going on. Disciples that make disciples.
Right.
Exactly.
Beautiful. That replication.
That's awesome. Let me give our listeners a little peek here. This is something I probably shouldn't do, but I'm going to. We have been in discussions with JJ and 2 to 3 other authors. In fact, we were looking at potentially 5 authors total in a work that we're looking to release in the spring of 2026 along some of the themes that you heard from JJ today. And I don't want to commit. We're not under contract. And I'm probably predating. Maybe by the time this episode does release, it will be under contract. But these are powerful authors that we're talking to, and they're going to be talking about the church as family, that theme of what does it look like instead of just parenting equipping. What if all generations begin to equip and experience relational discipleship intentionally? That's a renovation. JJ, thank you for challenging us. That's a renovation I think we all need to get behind. And yes, renovations take work. They take investment. They take sweat equity. But we need this renovation in our culture. So thank you, JJ, for an incredible, being our professor today. Thanks for doing that for us. Next week, we're going to pick up on that relational aspect with Carissa Potter. Carissa Potter is going to really challenge us how to connect and be intentional with just knowing a person's name, paying attention, and picking back up that conversation so that they know they're important in that age group. Look forward to hearing Carissa on next week's D6 podcast. We'll see you then.
You've been listening to the D6 podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.